All right. Hello, everyone. We're going to do a quick mic check, of course, because, that's what we do here. So if you're watching, go ahead and make sure that we're coming through loud and clear. We're going to bring Melissa on here in just a moment.
You need to scoot over just a bit.
I got to scoot over. I can't scoot up anymore.
Sorry.
Thanks for everybody who's watching, especially some of you who we have never seen before. Thanks, John, for telling us it's loud and clear. If you are a first timer, go ahead and put hashtag first time in the comments. We'd like to welcome you. We have some of our regular listeners. So glad to be back with you. We've taken the summer off to take care of family members, and we're so grateful that all of you have sent great messages of love and support, and hey, just take a break, we'll see you when you get back. So it's so nice to be able to see all of you back. And so moving forward, we're going to still have our research videos on Monday, and we are going to have our DNA videos on Wednesday. They return this coming week on Wednesday. Andy's going to talk about the Ancestry video, new releases that happened this summer. All right, so that is all I have for an introduction. Let's go ahead and bring on our special guest. This is Melissa Barker, the archive lady. How are you doing, Melissa?
Doing great, Devin and Andy. How are you guys doing?
Not bad at all.
Doing good, doing good.
I want to go ahead and shout out a few first timers, and then we're going to jump into your topic if that's okay. We have Holly, who says she's a first timer. We've got Barbara, who's a second timer. Glad you're joining us. We have some of our loyal fans, June and Kathy. Barbara, did I do Barbara?
You did Barbara.
I already did Barbara. All right.
John
is a regular. John is happy to see you guys. And yes, Stacy, you can't wait to hear Andy's reaction to the new Ancestry tool.
You're just going to have to wait.
You have to wait. And we broke it up into 2 videos. There's one on this next Wednesday.
Don't spoil it.
And the following Wednesday.
Okay.
So that's all I'm going to say.
I'm just saying.
Anyway, so we're going to talk today, Melissa, about getting into archives, particularly in manuscripts. I know you're a huge fan of manuscripts. So tell us what we need to know. Where do we start? Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to start with telling people what manuscript collections are. Because when they hear manuscript collections, I get all kinds of different things. People think that is like the copy of someone's book before it's published. The other day I had someone say, well, isn't that, a college graduate's thesis? Yes, those are manuscripts, but in the archives world, manuscript collections are just simply a collection of records by an individual, a group, or an organization. And these collections are donated to the archives almost on a daily basis. And so this is how I like to describe a manuscript collection to those who do not work and do what I do. So I want you to think about all of the genealogy records that you have, whether that's copies of census records, old family letters, photographs, maybe you have a diary, some scrapbooks, maybe you've got the quilt that your grandmother made you, a lock of hair. So it's papers and 3-dimensional things. Take all of that stuff, put it in boxes.
So real quick, Melissa, manuscripts don't have to be written. Because you mentioned hair, you mentioned photographs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Huh. Yes. Take all those things, put them in boxes, take those boxes down to your car, put them in the trunk, and drive to the nearest archive and donate it. That is a manuscript collection.
Okay.
And what it is it's a collection of stuff that gets donated to an archive.
Andy's been cleaning out the storage lockers. Do you really want that much stuff?
I call it junk.
No,
how do you decide the difference between usable junk?
What's the difference between junk and a manuscript collection?
Well, it's actually all in the eye of the beholder because, like today, I actually had a gentleman walk in today and donated a gun holster, not the gun, but the gun holster, because it belonged to a very important person here locally who was the town sheriff back in the 30s. So that's important to us. It's not paper. It's not a photograph. It is an actual leather gun holster. And so that has historical significance. So when you're looking at your things in your own collections or in your garage, you need to look at it. Does it have historical significance? Not necessarily to your family, but at all. And then does it have family historical significance? Is it important to a particular area's history, a city, a county, a state? Was it involved in a historical event? Things like that you need to think about. So when you're going through your things, now I tell people when they're asking me, what kind of things do you take? I tell them everything because I'm afraid they're going to throw something away that I want. So I tell them, hey, bring it to me. We'll get rid of it if we don't want it. And I'm always scared to death I'm going to get people's trash. But we're scared because we have so much that has been thrown away in the past. And so that's what a manuscript collection is. And, to me, genealogists don't use these like they should. In fact, a lot of genealogists don't even know they exist because when I talk about it or when I show it to people who walk into my archive, which, by the way, this is where I'm at. I'm at the Houston County, Tennessee Archives and Museum. And when I show them what's in these collections, they are just amazed. Sadly, not a lot of these collections are digitized or microfilmed and online. So you have to actually go to the archive or, in this day and time, talk to them by email, by their social media pages, call them on the phone because they are ready to work with you. After we've gone through what we've gone through the last couple of years, archivists have now gotten more adept at working with researchers from a distance.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Good.
So, but the most important part I will say of a manuscript collection is not actually the collection itself. It is something called the finding aid.
Okay.
Now, the finding aid is a document. And the finding aid is the document that the archivist produces as they put the collection together, as they process the collection. And in this finding aid is a bunch of information about the collection, but the most important part is the contents listing. The contents listing in a finding aid is that box by box, folder by folder listing of what's in the collection. Now, finding aids usually can be found online on the archive's website. You can find them on Archive Grid or Internet Archive, where archives have shared this information on those websites. You can actually contact them and ask them for maybe an index of their finding aids. And that's what you want to look at, that contents listing. It'll tell you correspondence for certain years are in the boxes. It'll tell you there's a quilt in there. It'll tell you there's a scrapbook or a diary. Or just if it's an organization, maybe it's a business and there's their business ledgers, business papers, things like that. So the finding aid is important.
Question: who makes these finding aids?
The archivist makes the finding aids, or whoever is processing the collection. When the collection comes to us, it is in all kinds of shapes and forms. Now, I have some photographs I can show you. Can I share my screen?
Sure, absolutely. Click on that share screen button.
Let me share my screen. Well, here, where is it? Now I don't see. All I see is us. That's good. Let me.
We didn't do much in the green room, so I do apologize for putting you on the spot.
No, it's okay. I hope I can share this. We'll see if we can. I'm going to do that, and I'm going.
You did say archivists is getting more adept, so this is a test for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Let me see here. Okay, now let me try to share and see if it'll come up.
Let me take a quick moment and tell everybody who's watching, if you do have any questions for Melissa, go ahead and put it in the comment section as you think of them. I go and I put a little notice on my side of things, and we bring them up as there's different pauses. So don't wait to the end for your comments. Put them as you think of them, your comments and your question. All right. So yeah, Melissa, I'm seeing your unprocessed collection slide.
Real quick, I got a question that goes along with the finding aids. Because there's obviously different archives all throughout the country. Is there any kind of standard format for the finding aids, or is that going to be something that is archive specific?
Well, yes and yes. There are standards. We are taught as archivists, as like any other profession, standards. Now, I can tell you that although all the archivists kind of takes that standard and manipulates it to their own, what they want to do, but there are standards. When you look at finding aids, when you start looking at them one after the other, you can see that standard, but each archives takes it and does it differently.
Okay. So it's like a cooking recipe. So you kind of have that standard as a cooking recipe, and then people tweak it to fit their styles and needs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So what I'm going to show you is what collections look like when they come into the archives, and then I'm going to show you what they look like when they're done. So this is what's called an unprocessed collection. This is the Lyle family records collection. And as you can see from these photographs, it is all kinds of different things. The family owned a store locally, so there's a store ledger. There's scrapbooks. There's newspaper clippings. There's photographs, all kinds of different things. And so this is why I show these pictures, to show people this is the Lions Club. So you could have an organization, whether it's a civic group or a social group like the Garden Club or something. They could donate records. And why do they donate their old records? Think about it. When you are volunteering for an organization, and let's say you get to be the secretary, guess what you get? Guess what you get? You get all the boxes of all the old records get given to you. Well, sometimes those organizations want to get rid of those records, not necessarily throw them away, but put them somewhere safe so they can be accessed. And so they donate them to archives. So this is our local Lions Club. They donated their meeting minutes, information about the members, program information.
I don't think your slide changed. We're still seeing the Lyle family records collection.
Oh, that's not nice. Okay. Well, that's not going to work then, is it? So you might also have something like our local VFW, American Legion. They donated some of their old records. And so that's a good thing. And then when you're processed, we take all those records, and as archivists, we clean them. We take out any metal, if you've ever heard me talk about how to process your records. And then we put them in file folders, archival file folders.
When you say take out metal, you're talking like staples and stuff or something else?
We're talking about anything that's metal. That's staples, paper clips, binder clips, brads. Let's see, what else have I found? I have found hairpins, straight pins. We take out off tape if we can, if it will come off. Rubber bands, which are absolutely, every archivist hates rubber bands. I've actually seen pieces of paper put together with Band-Aids. I figured they didn't have anything else, and so they took a Band-Aid and they just put two pieces together with a Band-Aid. I don't know.
Did that clean up well, or is that difficult to clean up on a Band-Aid?
Anything with adhesive is very difficult.
Okay.
You know, especially over time. If you've ever gotten into a box of records and seen what rubber bands can do over time, it's pretty nasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they turn all tarry and stuff, don't they? If they get the right heat and...
It depends on, I think it depends on the rubber band, but it either do one of two things. It'll either become very brittle and it'll just break off the paper, which is what you really want, or it will deteriorate and become this gummy, sticky, awful that sticks to paper and makes paper stick to each other. It's terrible. And so once we've done all that, then we put them in file folders and boxes, and we make that finding aid so that the researchers can look at the finding aid and say, oh, well, bring me file 5 that has Civil War letters from 1861 to 1864. And so that's what we do. And if you can see behind me all the boxes, that's what we're doing now. This is a collection of records that we're working on now. And that's what we're doing. We have to get it all together to be ready for researchers.
So how long, just taking a look at one of those boxes behind you, a box that size full of stuff, about how long does that take to process for an archivist? For a box, it probably would take us an hour or more for a box. But then you have to take into consideration a manuscript collection could be a box of stuff, or it could be 300 boxes of stuff. Right.
And when you have to take 300 boxes of stuff and go through it, process it like I've talked about, get it ready for researchers, it takes months to do that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So what do you recommend? I know we're talking a little bit of a donation, and then we're also talking about research, but if you're planning on donating, how can you help an archivist?
First of all, you can help by calling ahead. Well, let me go back one more step. Okay. I encourage genealogists now to start donating. I know it's hard to let go of your things, and I get that.
But if you leave it, your children and grandchildren, it's going to be up to them what to do with it. And if they don't,
or somebody like me cleaning out a storage locker, just throwing your stuff away.
right,
Literally.
Exactly. I mean, a few years ago, I had two sisters come into the archives, and they had a couple of boxes full of binders. And they told me that their mother was in the nursing home, that they were cleaning out their mother's home, and they were going to throw all this away, but someone said that you might want it. When I got to looking at it, it was 50 years worth of their mother's genealogy research. They were going to throw it away because they weren't interested in it.
Right.
And so we took it, although nothing in those boxes had anything to do with my area, which would not normally do, but I knew they were going to get thrown away. So start now, start contacting the archives where you want to donate your materials. The reason being is because many of our archives are full. A lot of them are no longer taking paper records. They're taking digitized records now.
Okay.
Because they have more room that way than they do building wise.
You mentioned one thing about if you're taking over like a secretary of an organization where you get all the records. For the Genealogy Society that I was a part of, that I was the secretary or the treasurer. I was a treasurer, actually. I don't think that was the secretary. But I got all the treasurer records, which, is all the financial stuff. And this was several years of it. I digitized all of that because I didn't want to hand over, 2 boxes of stuff to the next person. Right. I'd rather just give them the password to the account and say, here you go.
Well, that was very good of you to do that. But just like I said, contact the archives now, because if you wait, they may not take it. They may not have room for it. And so contact them now, make those arrangements, put it in your will or in your final paperwork of where you want these things to go, especially if you have something specific that's very historical to a particular place. Make those arrangements now. And so that your children and grandchildren can follow those instructions.
And if you are putting that in your will, might I also suggest that you provide a donation as part of that will to that archives?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm sure that many archives will take it for free, but they'd be very happy if you left them a few $100s or even a few $1,000. Because like you just said, as far as processing, you're talking at least an hour a box. And if you've got 300 boxes that you're donating, that is like 2 people, 2 months full time.
Absolutely. And then you also have to, and that's why we have what are called unprocessed records, manuscript collections sitting on shelves in every single archive. And so when genealogists tell me I'm done with my genealogy or I can't find anything, I'm done, I'm just going to give up, I say don't give up, because there are these records sitting on shelves that eventually will get processed. Just recently, in the last couple of weeks, Washington County, Tennessee's archives, they were refurbishing their courthouse. And the contractors took down a wall that was covering up a vault that included 113 volumes of court records dating back to 1890.
So now the court record burnt down is not a myth anymore. It's just walled up in a vault.
Yes. And the contractors have said that the more walls they bring down, they may find more.
Oh, wow.
And so, never give up. Never, ever, ever give up on your research.
True. Very true. Very true. I forgot I think one thing, so you say an archive, and I'm curious, does that have to have necessarily archive in the name to be considered an archive? And I'll give you my situation, what came to mind, and then you let me know, and then we'll talk about actually how to do the research. So I visited the Fort Worth stockyards, and they had this little rodeo museum. It's really, really tiny, but they had all kinds of cool things to look at. I could not process everything that they had in this little tiny room with my eyes alone. It would have taken a lot of time. We've also been to the Farm and Ranch Museum,
the Farm and Ranch Museum down in Las Cruces.
Here in New Mexico. Are these museums also considered archives? What do you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The word archive may not be in the name and may not be on the building, but any place that is preserving documents, photographs, artifacts, history of any kind are considered an archive. So museums, definitely, yes. Okay. And in fact, I actually encourage genealogists to try to talk to museums about researching in museums.
Oh, okay.
Museums are more difficult to get access to. Because if you think about museums and you see a letter on display or a photograph on display, there's more of that in the back rooms, just like regular archives.
Okay.
Now, museum curators are archivists in general are very protective of their records, but museums are a little more protective of their records. So you may not get access, but if you keep talking to them and if you show them how serious you are about your research,
Mhm.
they may help you.
Okay.
But talking about how to gain access to these records, actually doing the research.
Okay.
First of all, you need to get online. You need to go to these repositories websites. County archives, historical genealogical societies that have records and buildings, museums. Don't forget those university and college libraries and archives on those campuses, because there may have been a time when there wasn't any other place to put records, and these family records went to that college for some reason. And get on their website. Dig through their websites. Don't forget state archives. All 50 U.S. states have a state archives. I don't know why archivists make it so difficult to find things on their websites, but we do. And I can say that.
I'm just going to pull up real quick the Tennessee archive page.
Yes.
Yeah. And so you're in, actually, I keep thinking you're in Tennessee.
I am in Tennessee.
I don't know if I have the right website up.
Yeah, I'm in Tennessee.
You think Houston, because she's in Houston County. Okay. And that's why I was confusing, because we were in Houston and she wasn't in the same Houston.
Okay, so where is Houston on this? How would I start actually diving into this?
Okay, see where it says Humphreys County and it's green?
Yes.
Right above there. Right there. There I am. I'm in that building right there.
Oh, that's a great building. Look at that.
So we're stalking you right now.
We are.
Okay, and then there's a website, right?
Yeah, but don't go to the website.
Don't go to the website. Okay, is there another one you would recommend me going to, kind of as you're telling us how to do certain things?
Go to the one above me, Stewart County.
Okay. And their website?
Yeah, go to their website.
Okay.
Their website is actually the US Gen website.
Oh, okay.
This is their archive. This is a sister county to us. Our county was made in 1871 by portions of this county.
Real quick, Melissa, what's the population of your county?
My county, the entire county, is a little over 8,000 people.
Okay, so we're not talking a huge county, obviously.
No.
That's smaller than Los Alamos.
Yeah, we have a very small county, but our county is very rich in history.
Yeah. That's cool, though. Anyway,
but
I guess the point is, it doesn't have to be humongous to have an archive.
No.
Okay, so where should I go next? I'm trying to dive into archives. Where do I go next?
Go to overview inventory.
Okay.
And it tells you, look at all the records that they have. Now, one thing about Stewart County is where the Battle of Fort Donelson was. Okay. And so they have a state park there, Battle of Fort Donelson. So if you're doing research in this area and you have heard that their courthouse was burned during the Civil War, you would be correct. Okay. However, if you think that all the records were burned, you would be incorrect. The rest of the story is the people at the time asked the Union soldiers, please let us take our records out of the courthouse before you burn it. And they let them do that.
That's incredible.
So the courthouse burned, but the records didn't.
They stored the records in a cave. And so they have records dating back to 1803. So if you just hear the courthouse was burned and there's no records, you would be missing out on a lot.
So we've got two situations now that I had never heard of before. One is, hey, they let them remove the records before they burned it down. And two, well, it got walled up and was lost for 30 or 40 or 50 years. So
yes. Early settlements, 1804.
Yeah. So if you come down on that page,
records not housed.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
But they're still at the courthouse.
Oh, okay.
Keep coming down on that page, and then we're going to look at something. Okay. Keep coming.
I'm coming.
There's a lot.
There is a lot.
There's so much.
Okay. Come back up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, this part. Okay. I want you to click on Circuit Court Minute Book Index.
The very first one, yep.
There you go. And then come down. This is a type of finding aid.
Oh, okay.
They've indexed this entire book from 1821 to 1834.
And so these are the names that are showing up in there. Very good.
And it gives you the volume number and the page number where you're going to find those names.
Oh,
Now,
that's really neat, because it's not just, I guess I was always thinking, when you're talking about court records of plaintiff and defendant, but here we're seeing juror, you're seeing attorney, the solicitor general, security.
Yes, they did an all name index of that book, which took a lot of time.
So you might, like, for instance, if your ancestor that you found happened to be a bailiff or something at the court,
Yes.
then there might be something like this that was indexed where it's like, hey, you could see every single case that he was a part of, or
Absolutely.
anything like that.
And I'll tell you that is kind of rare. The archivist in Stewart County, Jim Long, he indexes everything, which is fantastic. But not all archives are going to do that.
All right, so everybody in chat, put your hands up and praise Jim Long.
Jim Long, yeah.
Jim Long. All right, we got to praise him here in the chat.
Yes, I love it when someone does an every name index. But
awesome.
So yeah, but now when you are working with these archives, you just need to get a hold of their finding aid index.
Okay.
Now, the finding aid index is going to say the Jim Smith paper 1792 to 1804. That's all it's going to say. Or it's going to say the Lions Club records, and it's going to give a date range. So it's going to be up to you to decide, okay, is this something I want to look at? Okay, yes, it is. Well, then you need to delve a little further, go to that contents listing of the finding aid, look at what is in the collection. And if you're at the facility or if you're talking to them by email, okay, I want to see what's in folder 4.
Okay.
And if you're at the facility, they'll bring you the folder. You can open it. You can look at whatever is in that folder, and you can ask for more folders, make those requests. If you're talking to them by email or phone, it may be that they can tell you what's in the folder, and then you might can request that it be digitized and sent to you. You may have to pay for that.
Okay.
But these records are there. And like I said, not a lot of them are digitized and online.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to have to do your legwork the old fashioned way, like I had to do it 30 something years ago.
Okay.
But the records are there. And I just encourage people to look for them.
So here's the question then. You mentioned basically a scenario where, hey, you found this finding aid that you think relates to it. And so you're looking for a specific folder and you request that. What if you don't know and you're sort of just going on a fishing expedition?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that?
You can do that, but it's easier to do that when you're at an archive in person. Because if you have, let's say it's a collection that has 3 boxes to it. You can ask for all 3 boxes to be brought to you, and you can look at every folder in every box.
Okay.
Now, if it's a collection of 300 boxes, they're not going to bring you 300 boxes.
At least not that day.
Yeah, no. So, but you can look at the entire collection.
Okay.
If it's small, eventually you could do 300 if you want to keep going back and look at 3 boxes at a time.
I'll be honest. I know I struggle trying to utilize archives. And so where do you start? Do you start, where's my question? Do you start where your ancestors lived, where they were born? I mean, because it would be very difficult to find them in random town USA if they weren't there.
Yes.
So what is the most logical, take me through the process as if, I'll be honest, I haven't done a lot of archive research. Where do I start?
You start very, very local. If you know where they lived.
Okay.
I mean, I even down to the city, because there are some larger cities that have city archives.
Right.
And so start local, goes to the city. And then you look at the county, and you need to take note of any repository. And that is a historical society that has a building with records in it, a museum, a county archive, whatever, a courthouse that still has their records at the courthouse.
Okay.
And then if you have searched all of those records, then you go to the state archives.
Okay.
Every state archives, people think, well, that's at the capital, that my ancestors didn't live in the capital of the state. But state archives collect records for the entire state.
Right.
There may have been counties and cities that never had a place to put those records, so they got sent to the state archives. So
and if you go back, let's go back to the Tennessee map real quick.
Okay. Give me just a second. I can see this.
So I think the white counties there are ones that don't have an archive, a county archive.
Yes, and this is not updated because the Tennessee State Library and Archives has been very, very instrumental in trying to get archives established in every county. So this is unusual. Not every state has this. But right now, out of our 95 counties, there's probably only 3 counties that do not have an archive.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, this is not an updated map. The
But
blue
at least a
counties
start point.
oh yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And then, like in Tennessee, the Tennessee State Library and Archives is located in Nashville, which is about an hour and a half due east of me in Davidson County. And like I said, these state archives have records for each individual county at their facility.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I would send you to the National Archives.
Sure.
You say, well, why would my ancestor have anything at the National Archives? Because if they did anything in military, they could be there. If they did anything with land that isn't overseen by the state, it could be there.
Okay.
So, go everywhere. And then if you still can't find what you're looking for, this is what I do. I contact the local chamber of commerce, the historical society, because the people that run those historical societies, if they've lived there and been born there their entire lives and they're in their 70s and 80s, they know where the records are.
Okay.
You can even ask them, okay, where are the records? And they go, well, there's a building down here that has all the records in it, and that nobody's doing anything with it, but that's where they're at. You know where the records are.
That's true.
Yeah. And I've been known to call and ask who's the oldest person in the county that I can talk to.
Okay.
Because people in the community know where this stuff is.
Nice.
Even if you talk to a clerk at the courthouse and they say, oh, it was thrown away. We don't have it anymore. You talk to somebody else in the community, they're going to say, oh, no, it's not thrown away. It's over here in this building.
Gotcha. Awesome. So we look for the finding aids.
Yes.
And then from a distance, you alluded to that you might be able to ask them to maybe digitize it for you for compensation. How do you have that conversation tactfully?
Well, first of all, when you contact any archive, library, museum, any of those people, you've got to remember that you're not the only person that they're helping. They're also answering other emails, phone calls, people walking in the door, they're processing records. And so you need to be very specific with your requests. Don't ask for everything for the Smith family because it's going to fall on deaf ears. You're not going to get a reply to your email. You're just going to be ignored. I'm sorry, but that's what happens. So if you can get on their website and you found a record that you want to see, write down the call number, write down the box, the file number, write down all the information. So when you give it to them, they can go right to it. They don't have to look it up again. Give them specifically what you are looking for. Or if you're looking for a marriage record, tell them, I want to look for a marriage record for this couple that if you don't know when they married, give them a date range, at least a 10-year date range or a 5-year date range. Because I have genealogists that come in all the time and they say, well, I'm just looking for information, and they give me a surname. And I'm saying, okay, I can help you with that. What are the names? I'm having to dig out of them. What are the names? What are the dates? So help the archivist, give them that information in advance. Another thing that helps too, if you're going to visit an archive, contact them in advance. Let them know what you're coming to research. Let them know specific documents or specific collections, because they may go ahead and pull that stuff for you and have it ready for you when you get there.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Because then you can schedule your day better.
Yes.
I know that Ohio State Archive, I visited that. Actually, I made a donation to the Ohio State Archive of this journal that came into my possession, and I made a family tree and wrote a little bit who was this person and what county they were from, and they're like, oh, thank you, that actually makes it valuable. And then somebody read through it, and it took a year before I heard back what they were going to do with it. And they're like, this is so great, this is a Civil War journal, you don't want it? And I'm like, it's not my ancestors, so I'd rather give it to somebody else that would appreciate it. And anyway, I do remember that they did appreciate getting a heads up so that they could work it into their flow a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So that's if you can visit. If you can't, just kind of go back. When you're doing an email, how do you say, hey, I can't travel? What's a reasonable request in that case?
You could make the same request in an email. Don't send them very lengthy emails.
Okay.
Because they get emails all day long. And so when you send them an email, state specifically what you're looking for.
Okay.
Let them know that you're not going to be able to travel and that you're going to have to work through email or telephone calls.
Okay.
And when you get a hold of someone who replies to you, hang on to that person's information because you want to work with that person.
Okay.
You know, you don't want to just keep emailing different people at the same place because then you're having everybody running around for you.
Okay.
Work with one person.
Okay.
Like I said, and be very specific in your email. Do a bullet point. Don't do paragraph after paragraph after.
Okay.
Don't give them the narrative of your entire family history. They don't want that. They just want to know, what do you want?
Okay. So like you had said earlier, hey, I can't travel. I'm wondering what would be the possibility of photographing and sending to me file box 4 of the Smith, right? Because it's Smith, but you're being specific. File box 4, here's the call number.
Absolutely.
And then stop.
Okay. Even, and I'll tell you this, even if you found records, I mean, if you found 2 or 3 folders, I would tell them that because they don't want to pull the first folder and then you say, oh, by the way, I wanted the 3rd folder too. Well, I got to go get that, you know. But tell them you're willing to wait if you want to send a folder at a time.
True.
You know?
Okay.
Yeah, but do your legwork first on their website, and if you can, and if you find information, help them.
Okay.
Give them the box numbers and the folder numbers, or the file numbers, or the book and page number, whatever reference that they have.
Right. So I like that you added that I'm willing to wait.
Yes.
You know, no rush. I'm also willing to pay a reasonable compensation.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then stop. Because, you know, in English class, we're taught to write these really lengthy, friendly letters and a salutation. But it sounds like be specific, but still has civility of, hey, I'm willing to wait. It's not super urgent. But I guess part of me would think, oh, they're just going to put this in a forget it folder and they'll never come back if I say that. But you're saying, no, you would prefer that you're not trying to get it tomorrow.
Exactly. And also adding the part that, you know, you'll be glad to pay for copy fees, digitization fees, or make a donation. That will help as well. Not to say that everyone that says that gets better treatment, but it will help them. It shows that you're serious. It shows that, you know, you're really going to follow through on this. Now, yes, archivists get very busy. They may lay your email aside. It may be in a couple of weeks you don't hear anything.
Okay.
I would email them back and say, I sent this email on this date. Did you get it?
Okay.
Don't be mean. Don't be, you know, just say, did you get it? Can you just let me know that you got it?
Okay.
And a lot of times they'll reply, say, yes, we did get it. We have a lot of requests right now because there's been, especially because it's COVID, there's a lot of backlog in our archives because they didn't get back to work for so long. And now they have all these requests that, you know, but just be patient. It's very difficult. Genealogists do not have the patient gene. We have genes and we have DNA, but we do not have patient genes. But
which is funny because you think they would with all the, you know, brick walls and problems that come up.
No, we just don't have it. So, but you're going to have patience when you're working with archives.
True. Well, we have a couple of questions, and then if you have any other final things that we haven't covered, we'll loop back into. We're going to go to this one because I think it was mostly related to the topic we're on, and then we'll backtrack. So this is related to the email. Say who, what, when, where, and why. I got a request. Is the George in your file the same as the George I'm looking for? I'm hearing that, you know, between genealogists, that's not good. But then also to the archivist, how would you respond if you receive something like this? I mean, you'd have to convert the question, but I think the sense is still there.
One thing you have to keep in mind is that not all archivists are genealogists. I wish they were. So for me, I was a genealogist before I became an archivist. And so if I were to get something like this question, I would take a deep breath and then I would reply to the email, okay, who is your George? But not all archivists would do that. A lot of archivists would just ignore this question.
Okay.
Because they feel like if you can't ask a proper question, I can't help you.
True.
But I have a genealogist mind and I'm thinking, okay, I get it. And so I would dig into this a little further. And I have the luxury of working in a smaller archives and I can take the time.
True.
But just be specific, give full names, give any dates that you have. And like I said, and stop there. Don't give that and then say, oh, and by the way, here's the entire history.
For sure. Right, for sure. Okay, here's another question. Would manuscript collections include our ancestors' wills and deeds post-Revolutionary War?
They very well could. And you have to keep in mind that the wills that you find in will books are copies.
Mm-hmm.
The clerk at the time copied from the actual will into the will book. Deeds are the same thing. In our deed books, those are copies, hand copies. And so the actual wills, the actual deeds could still be with the person. And if those person's papers have been donated to an archive, their will and their deeds could be located in them.
Nice. Okay.
It's the same question.
Was it? Okay,
yes.
My bad. Okay, here's a digitization question. If digitizing, how would an archive want the files named?
They would want them named in such a way that it tells them what's inside that file. I know that's kind of broad, but it depends on what it is that's in that file. You can always ask the archive how they want their digital records named.
Is PDF the standard that they use for most digitized records?
No, they use TIFF.
TIFF? Okay.
TIFF, yeah.
That's a good thing. I think most people are familiar with PDF, but TIFF is not necessarily something they would be.
TIFF is not compressed.
Right.
And so that's what we digitize. When we digitize records in an archive, the standard is using TIFF at 600 DPI.
TIFF 600. And even if you were submitting a book, like a digital copy of a book, or is that in a different category?
That is not necessarily. It probably is a book. Yeah, that's probably would be different. TIFF is normally for documents and especially photographs.
Okay. Good to know. Awesome. All right. I love that I can throw things at you and you have no problem just answering anything on the fly. I love it. Okay. How can you preserve a rug? I have the rug from my paternal grandfather's office.
Well, if it's in pretty good condition, I would encourage you to roll the rug out flat. I want you to get some archival tissue paper. And if the rug is not made of any kind of animal product, you want to get buffered tissue paper. Did you know that there's two different kinds of archival tissue paper? There's buffered and there's unbuffered.
Okay.
There's unbuffered with anything that's made of animal, like leather or anything like that. And I want you to put tissue paper on that entire rug. Now, if it's in his office, this may be a larger rug, but that's what I want you to do. And then I want you to roll the rug up because that tissue paper is going to roll up with it. And then you can store it rolled, not too tight, but you can store it rolled. Most important thing about documents, photographs, rugs, I don't care what it is where you store them.
Okay.
You need to store them in a very dark, a very cool, and a very dry place. Temperature and humidity is our worst enemies.
So New Mexico.
Yeah, not in Tennessee where the humidity is. But temperatures and humidity, especially if they fluctuate, like an outbuilding. People have a lot of outbuildings that they store things in. The temperatures and humidity levels fluctuate out there. If you can keep your temperature and humidity levels pretty much the same, that keeps your documents and your photographs from deteriorating because they're already deteriorating on their own naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And the colder temperatures, you wonder why you got to put a sweater on when you go to a library or an archive. It's because we keep it cold on purpose for our records to not deteriorate.
Very true. Very true. And there's going to be another question coming. Well, I'm going to ask it here. With large items, we definitely need to call the archive ahead.
Yes.
What would be, it's a business and it's a large item. Mm-hmm. What are some of the better places to look for making a donation to preserve something like that over something that would probably always be a no?
Right. Well, if someone gave me this question about a rug from my paternal grandfather's office, I would ask these questions. Well, okay, who was your paternal grandfather? Was he some historic figure that did something or some reason why this rug? I mean, obviously it's important to Kathy. But if you're going to donate it, why is it important to be historically preserved? And then if it is just a unique or rare, maybe textile of some kind, we have textile museum and archives.
Okay.
in the United States. And and I would reach out to one of them, especially if it's a very old rug, or if it was produced or made by a well-known rug producer or artist that did it. That's another reason why you would want to reach out to a textile.
Okay. So it sounds like you need to do a little more investigation into the history of the person, but also perhaps the history of the rug or the large item. Yeah. And then let that be your guide.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Would you have accepted the gun if it had been owned by this well-known sheriff?
Yes, I would have, actually. We actually have a weapon in our collection. And you do not actually, you would think this, but you don't have to have any special licenses or anything to include things like that in our archives. We've also have run across some straight blade razors in our collections in the court records. We've run across some different things in here that you would never think about. But yes, if that had been with the holster, we would have accepted it as well.
Okay.
So just as a historical tidbit for everybody, I happen to like guns, and so I know a few things. But 1891, if you have a firearm that was manufactured before 1891, it is not considered a firearm. Mm-hmm. You can mail it. You can own it. If you're a criminal, doesn't matter. You can own it. You can carry it with you. Technically, you could take it on an airplane, although the TSA has different rules. But yeah, so 1891, think of as the cutoff. And so when you're talking about, the sheriff with his 6-shooter at his side, out in the Wild West, whatever, that qualifies. Yeah, the Civil War era rifles and pistols and everything, they all qualify. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, when you say you don't need a special license, like, yeah, for something like that, it's not a firearm anymore.
Right.
It still shoots, but it's not a firearm.
Well, that was something I had to actually look into whenever this firearm came into our possession. I thought, and I knew the Williamson County, Tennessee Archives and Museum here in Tennessee, they have a fantastic military part of their museum. It's like a whole room of weapons, and you can go in and look at it. So I contacted them and I said, do we have to have, as an archives, do we have to have any kind of special licensing or training or anything to accept these? And he said, no. I said, okay, good.
Now, there's a couple of other things if you have weapons like this that I know that I've been to. One is Texas A&M University, right in the middle of their campus, has an extremely large collection of firearms in one of their museums there. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful to go look at. In Rock Island, Illinois, I think it is, the Rock Island Armory. Mm-hmm. It's one of the armories for the United States military, but they also have a museum there. And if you want to see any kind of weapon whatsoever over the last 300 years, go to the Rock Island Armory. It's just absolutely fantastic. There's more guns there than you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. But just, I guess, starting to be more aware of the possibilities of not only, like the Farm and Ranch Museum, that would have farming equipment potentially. We live in Los Alamos, New Mexico, and Oppenheimer movie is going to be coming out in 2023, and they were looking for all the historically accurate stuff. So sometimes you have to try to figure out, where you could take things to be preserved.
I like to say that there is literally an archives out there for everything. And, and so when you're doing your own family research and you come across interesting things, you want to know more about it, look for an archive for that.
Okay. Awesome. But this goes back to your point that you said at the very, very beginning, start now.
Oh, yes.
Right? Because somebody cleaning out a storage locker is not going to spend a lick of time.
I don't care about your paperwork. I care about whether there's green bills there.
Well, and they're also looking for a buyer, not a donation price.
Yeah.
He's not going to try to research, where should I say it's can I sell it or can I trash it? And even though he has a genealogy background, most of the storage locker cleaners, they're not going to really care. They're even worse than Andy.
Well, I think the mistake that a lot of people make is that when they're doing something like that, or even like I get phone calls all the time that say, we're cleaning out my parents' house. What do you want? And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not there. So if I tell them a certain list of things and they find something that's not in that list, but it's something that I would want. And so I tell them, look, whatever you don't want, just box it up and bring it to me, because it's gotten to the point where I don't want to say anything because I'm afraid they're going to throw something out.
Right, true.
But what does happen is that people look at stuff and they go, well, they're not going to want that. Don't assume that we don't want something.
Mhm,
Call us, talk to us.
mhm.
We had a very prominent family close up a business that was in business since the 1800s in the last month. They've contacted us. They have a collection. They were a pharmacy, and they have a collection of medicine bottles that go back to the 1800s that they're going to donate to us.
Mhm.
So, you know, people see things and they go, oh, well, they're not going to want that. Don't assume that.
Mhm.
Ask.
That's true. Okay, so here's another question. Are there some items that archivists are always going to want the original and not the digital copy of?
Yes, they're going to want original, well, not vital records, because believe it or not, vital records, they can get those if they exist.
They're not that important.
I know, but they're going to want original letters.
Okay.
Especially like Civil War letters, World War I letters, especially wartime letters.
Okay.
They're going to want original diaries, original scrapbooks.
When did scrapbooking start?
Scrapbooking started way back in like the 1600s.
Okay, so they're actually one of the oldest genealogy records then that people might be able to find.
Yeah, as soon as printing and that came into being, scrapbooks are one of my absolute favorite things to actually look at and to actually process in the archives, because everyone is unique because they're put together by individuals.
Right, for sure.
But yeah, they're going to want original old letters, original diaries, original scrapbooks, things like that. Anything that can be gotten online or that are photocopies out of books, or they don't want that.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. And then I have my grandfather's Springfield College geography book from early 1900s. Would this be a good start?
Assuming she's thinking a good start to donate somewhere, I would contact the Springfield College and ask them if they have this book. They may already have it, but you never know.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've been working on a video for my other YouTube channel called Write Your Family History. And it talked about donating books and so forth. If a certain book is out of copyright and you make a digital copy of it, I believe you can actually donate it to the Internet Archive, because if they don't have a copy of it. So you would have to process that. It's not a yearbook, because if it's a yearbook, I'd have a different answer for you.
And there is a webinar for our members. Did you post it already for the yearbooks?
Yes.
So for our members, there's a webinar on the members side about yearbooks and how to do research through yearbooks. And these are yearbooks all the way back to what, 1900s that you've seen?
1880.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I know they were started earlier. But the my heritage goes back to like 1880, 1890. Ancestry is about 1900. Internet Archive is hit or miss.
I have my grandmother's yearbook. She went to school in Ohio, and it's from 1940. And I don't know if she went to a very small high school. I don't know. But the yearbook is actually like handmade. All the photos are snapshots pasted into the book.
Neat.
And so I thought, this is a yearbook. Did they make like 40 of these or what?
Sure.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
And then that would be a good one to digitize and then send that to the Internet Archive or Family Search. Because if you send a yearbook to MyHeritage or Ancestry.com, you're not getting it back. They're going to rip it apart so they can scan it quickly. They scan everything, which is why I haven't sent my yearbooks yet, because there's two things. There are a couple people whose faces are scribbled out. And I don't think I did it. I think it was a friend of mine who signed my yearbook and scribbled this person out. But there also was some inappropriate language that people wrote in my yearbooks.
High school students would never do that.
No.
Not in any age.
No.
So I haven't donated it for that reason. Plus, I also have hearts around people who I thought was cute. And I'm like, do I really want to do that? But I'm very, very tempted, because none of my high school yearbooks are online anywhere. And I had talked about a number of places for yearbooks to be, and none of them are anywhere. So anyway, it's hard to let go of things. What happens to a something that the archive can't take?
Well, then that we just don't take it. And so whoever is wanting to give it to us, they'll have to find another place for it.
Oh, okay.
That's why I say, start now. If you have things that you want to make sure is preserved, that your kids and grandkids aren't going to throw away, start now trying to find a place for it to go.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. What other tips do you have for us to wrap up diving into manuscript collections? I still am trying to wrap my brain around that manuscript doesn't mean documents. I mean,
yeah.
I need to watch more of your videos. I totally get it.
Yeah, it's an old archival term, which I wish they would change, but it is what it is. Yes, start looking on websites. Start talking to archives, wherever it is you're doing research. Because I find that when genealogists come in here, they don't even ask about them. They don't even know they exist. So now that you're listening to me, you know they exist. So now it's up to you as a genealogist to be asking about them.
Okay.
I'll give you another tip. In Canada and in Europe,
good. We have international
collections are called fonds, Fonds.
Why do they got another term?
I don't know, but they're called fonds collections in Canada and in Europe.
Okay. There you go.
I've never.
Yes.
In Canada also.
Yes.
There you go. Awesome. Well, we do have people from the Netherlands, Sweden, Ireland, Canada, and the like. So that's a good final tip to wrap it up. I hope you guys appreciate that for staying through to the end. I'm going to throw this plug. Thank you, Kathy. Go ahead and like this video. Leave a comment or a question, because Melissa does come and check on our channel. And then I watch the comments. And if there's a comment I can't answer, then I tell Melissa and she comes back and answer them for me. So be sure to leave a comment, hit the subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100K subscribers pretty soon. And so those really help. So thanks, Kathy, quite a loyal fan there. So where can people find you, Melissa, to ask more questions and or learn more about your archive?
Actually, you can find me on Facebook. You can find me by my name, Melissa Barker. I have my own page, or I can also look for The Archive Lady. I have my own Facebook page. You can email me. I don't know if you want me to give my email address, but you can email me. I'll be glad to answer any kind of questions. And if you're ever in Middle Tennessee, come see me at the Houston County, Tennessee Archives and Museum.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone joining in. I learned a whole lot. Melissa is quite the gem, and she's such a wealth of knowledge. And I can't wait to retire in 6 years and go to the Franklin County Archive and find what's there for my ancestors, because that's on my to-do list. We will see you guys next time. Have a great day.
All right. See you later.